Okay, let's take a look at the current debt industry landscape. So, if the blue oval represents the debt industry, predominantly what we've got are companies that deal with debt management, and we'll go to what exactly that is in detail, a bit more detail. But effectively, there are a number of debt management companies. A lot of them feed their clients to IVA companies. Typically, debt management and IVA companies can be joined. For instance, there's Baines and Ernst they're the debt management company, and Blair Endersby is the corresponding IVA company. Gregory Pennington is the debt management company, and Freeman Jones is their IVA company. So in the marketplace, what we have are a number of dual companies that have different names, but they're related, and one is used as a feeder for the other. Admittedly, there are some independent debt management companies, but inevitably they'll always have a feed into IVA companies. Where we sit, where Integrity sits, is in the debt solution arena. We provide all solutions. Now, if this was mortgages, it would be equivalent of we would supply whole of the market. That means you've got access to all the solutions in the United Kingdom. Whereas the equivalent of a tied agent, for instance, if you went to Lloyds TSB, they would give you Lloyds TSB loans, for instance, or mortgages. They wouldn't give you Barclays, for instance, so they're tied. So very much like these debt management companies, if you go to a debt management company, the chances are they're going to recommend debt management, and the same with an IVA company. So they tend to shoehorn people into their own. What we're going to look now at is the UK debt solutions. What are the UK debt solutions, and what do they really mean? So, as you see the little piggy there, the first debt solution that we have is debt consolidation. Now, this typically is what the banks used, and as you can probably tell by the sound of my voice, that it isn't a particularly good solution. What happens is, in the past, it's caused no end of problems. The reason is that it takes your debt. So you say that you've got a number of debts on your credit cards, and typically puts them into a loan. So essentially, it lumps it all together. So you've got all your loans and everything and your credit card debt into one system, often one loan. And what happens is that term might be quite extended, and the amount you're paying might be less than what you're paying today, but there are some issues. The main issue is that you get interest on interest. Now, Albert Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. When you're a saver and when you are investing, then compound interest works for you. But many of our clients, all they've done is debt consolidation. Now, let's say they had a debt of £10,000, £15,000. What's happened to them is that that debt has compounded and gone out of control, and some people end up with debts of 40, 60, 80,000 just by consolidating their loans. Okay, so we've mentioned briefly before debt management. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Well, debt management is an informal arrangement, which means it's not a court ratified agreement, but it's an arrangement whereby between the client and the creditor that they'll pay a reduced amount. A disadvantage might be that the actual creditor may not stop the interest, but in the majority of the cases, specifically when the debt has gone to default or been passed to another collection agency, the interest does stop. But in the initial stages, interest may not be stopped. The major benefit of debt management is that let's say through credit cards and loans that the individual is paying, say, £500 a month. Under a debt management plan, that'll be reduced. They might end up paying, between 100, 250, something like that, or what? Basically, the disposable income. Okay, so the only sort of downside is that it's a bit like if the debt is like some dough, if you roll it out, even though the dough might be very, very thin, it stretches out and the payments can take several years. Typically, you're talking between 10 and 20 years to actually pay the debt off. Right, I've alluded to this early on, but individual voluntary arrangements, or IVAs, are again quite big in the industry. Currently, there are about 176,000 live in the UK today, but bearing in mind the duration of these is around 5 to 7 years, then that's a rolling sort of total, if you like, because there's some finish, others start. So again, they're between 5 and 7 years duration, which means on average it's 5 years, but there are some exceptions where it's 7. Okay, so 5 to 7 years duration. It's court ratified, which means that the court have a part in the process, and it's a legal agreement. It offers legal protection, so once the IVA is done, it's illegal for the creditors to chase for the debt. Let's do it again. Be with me a second. The client pays a monthly amount, often what they can afford. It's taken from their income and expenditure, and they pay a monthly amount. Again, this is subject to review. Bit like your mortgage, you must keep up the payments. If you fail to make payments into an IVA, then it could breach and therefore not work at all. Very important that you do keep the payments up. Okay, so another popular one is bankruptcy. In general, it lasts a year. All debts are written off within that 1 year since you become bankrupt. Very important that is the case. And houses can be protected, but the assets are indeed at risk. So, for instance, if you've got some Gucci Rolexes and you've got some Rembrandts and so on, they could be at risk. A house is classed as an asset if it's got loads of equity, but of course if it's a negative equity it isn't, and there's certain other things that might be classed as an asset, but houses can be protected. It's not a foregone conclusion that you lose your house in bankruptcy, believe it or not. Okay, again, it's court ratified as you expect. Another one that not many people know about, it's called a debt relief order. A debt relief order is like a bankruptcy light. It's a reduced bankruptcy. Unfortunately, you can't have any assets. Nil assets, nil pois. You can't have any of those. If you have, you can't do a debt relief order. Your debts must be £15,000 or less. So if it's 16,000 or 20, you can't do a debt relief order. There is a limit on your disposable income. For instance, if you've got £400 or £500 disposable income, you cannot do a debt relief order. Now, you probably think why people do them. It's quick and it's cheap. It only costs £100 to do. Another one that not many people know about is the administration order. However, the debts must be less than £5,000. So in this current economic climate, there are not many people that do qualify for this. Also, you must have a county court judgment for this to take place. And the judge makes the order, so it has to be a court ratified thing. And the payments last 3 years, so the payments go over 3 years, 36 months. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is UK Debt Solutions in a nutshell.